Yeah, we're about to start in like 10 to 15 minutes. Let's see if this actually is working. I want to see if I can actually crank that up a little bit. It's a little low. You're right. Properties. Let's see if I can. Oh, I see why.
That does not happen. I know there's smaller markets, but there's people that are really like people that are really to go are really to go. Yes.
Alrighty, let's see if that's better. If you folks can hear me better, let me know. No, you're fine. So if you're on the stream and you can hear me better or worse, let me know. I'm gonna try and tune it. Again, I'll try. I don't really have a professional setup for this. It's on my phone right now, so don't worry. We're gonna try and make it work though. Don't worry.
Yeah, I just realized when you talked to it, and I was like, oh, our voice is closest to it, so I think like our whole conversation. But yeah, I'd love to
So already it works. So it's like, that noisy thing affects everyone. Like, imagine going back to it's like, how do you make that super? But it's
You mean try to make a decision on Slack?
like in Slack, like you're like, we made a decision in Slack 2 months ago about it. So how does this affect us? Some technical decision, whatever. And then you go back and like have to make a decision. And like if like somebody's like, and you realize
So for everyone in the room, we'll hopefully be starting here in 3 minutes or so. So
Get your last drink, get your food, and we'll be kicking off here soon.
So, like,
One of our last events is here. For folks on the stream, we hope to be. For folks on the stream, we hope to be starting here in the next 3 to 5 minutes. So see you
Not
soon.
to be that company that like throws AI at everything, but that's an excellent use case, I think, for that I'm thinking about right now. That like an AI tool would help. Was that what you were thinking?
well, I'm actually thinking we have to get the information into the system in order for the AI to like help us.
Ah,
So like I think the AI could like come in and do it. We gotta get the data, like we gotta get the information. So I think the first thing to do is take that Slack data log, which is like, okay, this is a message that I set up a prize attached to it.
I just want to tell you that we do have that we already do.
Yeah.
Like it just came to my mind, and I just remembered, and then I thought, just in case there's something that like you wouldn't feel comfortable having like broadcast.
I'm actually doing this project as a business project. So I don't want to broadcast it.
Well, that
Okay, so back to the Slack. Then there's it's a bunch of messages. So is it out of job? Did I say this? I got the information. I'm going to be able to mark that message. So anybody who sees that message knows it's possible. Or maybe they don't even see it if they like care about like temperature. Like maybe they have to like not all the sirens.
are you familiar with the app Obsidian? So I just want to show you this. Because I mean, I'm not going to let top layers just let it talk. But, and this is not exactly what you're talking about, but it's like how I'm visualizing what we're talking about, for example, let's say you're talking about Slack, I'm like, let's talk about this design, and then somebody starts talking about pickup. So the way that, so Obsidian is not to communicate with other people manually, it's for yourself, but let's see if I can.
So it's like, okay, you combine the no, that's your Slack. So it sounds like you combine that with your graph.
So this is,
And
yeah,
like,
so like,
and then you get something more like
exactly. So like, so have you seen Obsidian? Have you used it? So it's in
my
graph.
Row. I have Row. So I probably have
I don't know what that is, bro.
it's a graph-based kind of like lineup. It's kind of
That's exactly what Obsidian is.
okay.
And
That's what I think.
yes, perfect. So like that is, I'm trying to find
That,
the
like, but being in multiplayer, but without getting chaotic. Without getting chaotic.
yes, you know, so like, I can't find a way like in the app to go to like the graph view, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's all that I wanted to say that like,
But you're on the right track. Of like,
If-
there's more capture.
Yeah.
so like I was just thinking like, yeah, like if there could be, and maybe that could, I mean people can do it too, but like maybe it could be AI driven, because you know what, the other day I was on YouTube and I looked up like Gemini Flutter or something, and then I looked at YouTube Short, and then the next one was completely unrelated about dogs or something, and because it's about dogs I kept on scrolling, and after I scrolled for like a minute or two, it brought me like their like AI brought up that, hey, you're not looking or do you want to stay focused? So it just brought the idea that like you can have.
So for the folks on stream, apologies, we'll fix the mic a little bit more, but hopefully you can hear us okay and try to get as close to the mic as possible. So, mic's acting kind of funky, so we'll try it. All right, so the guest Wi-Fi password is up here. It's been up for a few minutes, so hopefully you all have it. If not, yeah, get it now before it goes away.
All right, so welcome to our International Women's Day. We are a little late, but hey, we got our funding from Google.
Hey.
So today we're going to celebrate obviously International Women's Day. We're going to have a panel. We're going to have 4 wonderful women here, and basically they're gonna talk about how they got here today, how the work that we're doing now is going to connect to us, the future generation. So we're gonna have a good conversation up here.
I mean, it's going to be great. I'm really excited. Again, apologies for the delays. Funding takes time, so thank you, Amanda, for all the work. A little shout out to the space we're in today. Thank you so much, Tag, for hosting us today. We got a nice venue, nice view, good pizza, good drinks, so thank you. Oversees a lot of brands. If you're looking for a career, check us out. Yeah, so I always have the slide. Follow us on Twitter, X, Meetup, whatever y'all want. One thing I actually would like to say is if you find that there's something valuable that you want to see at these events, tweet at us, shoot us a message. We're looking at what content you folks want to see. So obviously today, we're celebrating women in tech and women tech makers, but I think one of the things that we're interested in is looking at things like generative AI. Everyone's looking at it, right? So, or things like that. So there are labs and things that we have in the works, but if there's other things that you want to see, web development, backend development, mobile development, Flutter, whatever, shoot us a message. You folks curate the content for us. So code of conduct that we kind of have across the board is 1, be excellent to one another. We're a diverse crowd. If you look around the room, everyone has a different background. Some folks are experts in their career, some folks are new in their career. So just be nice to one another. We're here to learn, foster, and grow, not tear one another down. There's plenty of that in the world, and here we're here to make a positive impact to each other.
And that just goes into rule number 2. If you see something, say something. We will not tolerate harassment over here. This is a safe space, and we're a safe community. So we're here to learn and benefit from one another.
And the last one I'll say is practicing yes and to each other. Always add to a conversation. Kind of going back to what I said in the first thing. Say, hey, that's great. Yeah. Yes, and did you know about this? And did you know about this? And did you know about this? Keep building on the conversation. Learn from one another. Everyone has different perspectives. Just a quick shout out. Google I/O is in about a week or 2 now. May 14th. If you are,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Cool. It's free online to watch the keynotes. If you're going to be there, find us. Some of us are going to be there as well. So we're all over you are going to be there. Cool. So find her, find me, find Dan, wherever Dan is. Dan's somewhere in the mystical land of traffic, probably.
And we'll just get right into the event. So if the panelists can come and take a seat wherever you guys would like.
Maybe pull it up a little bit. Try it again.
Oh, sure.
Like check 1, 2, 3. Technology, am I right? 1, 2, 1, 2.
All right,
Start.
so we're gonna go from right to left, and we're gonna, if you guys don't mind introducing yourselves and just saying what you do, and then a little back to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Valeria Duran Ruiz. I'm a founder of Tech Violet, and I also organize, am I holding it right?
No, it's
It's
kind of switching
going
over.
in now, yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
switching.
Can you guys hear me anyway? Okay. Yeah, perfect. So thank you everyone for coming, and I also organize Flutter Chicago if you would like to join us. I'm also a woman tech maker, and I'm very very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Octavia Tay. I'm a technical consultant right now at Huron Consulting Group. I am also a woman tech maker. I'm a community member, and I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Hi everyone, my name's Jen Anderson. I work here at TAG with Fatima. I lead the web platforms essentially. So if you go to any of our brand websites, that's my team. We're working hard to optimize that and build really cool products for the web. So thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, I'm Fatima. I'm the Director of Data Engineering here at TAG. I'm responsible for a lot of analytical side of data strategy, and if you ever get appointment with one of our offices, any of the reminder messages, campaign, CRM related, that's all the awesome work my team is doing, and thank you for having me here.
All right, so let's get right into it. Please, if you guys have any questions, hold it to the end. We're gonna have some time to, if you guys have any questions, you can ask any of them. And we'll do that at the end. So let's get on to the first question. So what motivates your work, and how do you see it impacting the future generations that come?
Do we keep going the same way?
Yeah, we can go in the same rotation if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, let's do
So
that.
what was the question again? What is asked for work?
What motivates your work, and how do you see it impacting the future generations?
Yeah, so what motivates me is really, I love collaboration, and obviously as I do Flutter Chicago, I really love building communities, and something that I'm very passionate about is mental health. We're currently developing a mental health app, and it just makes me really proud to build something that hopefully will help somebody keep on top of their mental health. So that is something very exciting to me, and I hope that younger folks can also benefit from that, and also that a project like that can make it easier to talk about mental health issues, and that we start to shift the conversation about talking about mental health.
Yeah, so one thing that really motivates my work is in research administration software. A lot of my work, we deal with a lot of really sensitive data. A lot of our clients are going to be things like universities and hospitals. So we're dealing with just a lot of the forefront of research, and so there's just a lot of people are impacted by the research that's dependent on our data. And so I think about, I'm a little bit younger, I'm healthier, but there's a lot of people out there. Anyone in this room can be dependent on the research that's coming out of the research that's coming out of the things that are dependent on our software. So just things like that.
Awesome. Well, what motivates me and how that kind of impacts how I want it to impact the future. For me, I am really interested in optimizing efficiencies. Very engineering type of answer, I'd say. I think context is independent, doesn't matter to me. What I really like and what really brings me great joy is finding those efficiencies and optimizations. And what I hope to impart on the future is that you can find optimizations and problems anywhere, and just finding those opportunities to then open up more doors for yourself, bringing those unique perspectives to find a way to solve a problem, because there's many ways to solve a problem. If I can start to introduce sort of that way of thinking with those I work with and just kind of bring in that culture, that's what I really like. And then at the end of the day, we've solved a problem in a unique way, collaborating and just together as a team. So.
Nice one, Jen. So I'm a data engineer through and through, and ins and outs is basically dealing with data. At the end of the day, the way we are headed, everything is data centric, whether it's utilizing this data to make impact on health, social life, and using this data to develop policies for the betterment of a society, culture, everything is data driven, and so knowing that being in a field that is making such a large impact overall is something that I'm very passionate about, excites me. And but it is also a very important and a sensitive subject to talk about, because with the ease at which data is available, especially personal data, I think one thing for the younger, the future generations to come is, for me, if I can help them understand to use this data responsibly, I think that is very important in today's data-centric world.
Nice. So we'll move on to the next question. How do you see technology reshaping society norms and cultural patterns, and what role do women play in this transformation?
You know, I would, if I may, I would love to hear from Fatima about this one, because you deals a lot with data and you're a data
Oh my
scientist.
god. Okay, that's interesting. So it doesn't necessarily have to be data, right? It is just, if you look at it, over the years, technology has evolved. Even today, we wish there are more women representatives in this, tech space. Hence, this panel too. And so I was talking to Joel earlier, and he was like, "Oh, are you all prepared?" And I said, if I get a chance, I'll talk about it as how there has been an overall bias towards what women can or cannot do within the technology space. And over the end, I was listening to NPR driving in, and there was this segment about this lady who has written this book called Women Behind the Wheels, and it talks about how a car technology became a subject of gender bias, because cars were never really designed from the perspective or lens of women using it. So that is one small challenge. Like, it directly puts threat to the safety of the women driving car, because when the test is happening in the, when they're testing it, it is against a dummy model that NASA uses to do or synthesize their test for space, like a 6 feet figure. And the woman has to pull her car seat up front, so when the airbag comes out, it's fatal. It can, cause really big injuries. And so it's not just about being in computer engineering industry, but overall STEM. Mm-hmm. And there are many biases that women, today face. The cultural norms just, I come from India. I grew up in Saudi Arabia during the 90s and early 2000s. I wasn't even allowed to step out of the house, to speak out loud, right? So there are so many things that have to face challenges, but the thing is, more women are stepping up, and the idea is that keep pushing, be resilient, speak up, and hone your skill set to develop that confidence to talk about it. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, actually, I think a great point about women really stepping into our own, and the great really force, the great push to bring all these women into the STEM fields. Not only is there the active component of, let's get all these women into this field, but there's the implicit effect on having more intellectual diversity, and the consequence of that on, all these STEM fields, not just, computer science and engineering, but on all these STEM fields. When you've had really just one way of thinking in computer science and in STEM for so long, you get similar or the same output for so long. And so now that you have, now women, and not just women, but women of color, and all these different identities and all these different patterns and ways of thinking entering the field, you get so much more creativity and so much more productivity and a greater output. And so just so many more minds contributing to a solution, that you're gonna have a better solution, and we're gonna have more, what's the term, better products moving
Yeah,
forward.
I think you're right, and especially as we are stepping into this world of generative AI, all the more reason for women to be involved, so that these, society norms, stigmas, or any such things don't become a part of the algorithmic world we are heavily headed towards.
Yeah.
And we don't want those biases to be in our generative AI models as well for the future. So
Yeah. we've already seen evidence of
Yes.
bias baked into algorithms. So it's even more important now for women and everyone really to have their hand in the pie when we're dependent so heavily on things like AI and
Exactly.
letting them make our decisions for us.
Yeah, to add to that, I love those ideas, and something that I would love to say to that is also that as much as it's important to have all of our individual input, it's important to remember that in different geographies and different cultures, things are going to not necessarily be the same. I was talking to this woman, she's from Africa and she's black, and her experience is different than mine. I'm Latina, and I was born and raised in Ecuador, but live in the United States. So like all of us have very different inputs that are very rich and that can really enrich things. But I will tell you, when I was talking to this colleague of mine that I'm talking about, she was saying, okay, we had just had a Women in Tech talk, and she said, oh, that's great, but it doesn't really apply to Africa. It doesn't really, that's not how things work where we're from. And there's different things to work on depending on where you are geographically, what your culture is, and that is why it's so important to think about individually bringing in all your richness, and also to have our AI models and things that we're working on also reflect cultures as a whole. And that's why I'm going to bring up again community and being a part of a community that resonates with you, and finding that community for yourself can be so valuable in helping also women be able to stay in the workplace, finding fellow women who are also, and fellow people, like anybody who are going through kind of the same things that you're going through or who think similarly than you, can also be helpful. And also bringing in people who think differently, who are going through different things, can also be very impactful in your life and to continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree with everything here. We can move to the next.
Beautifully said, honestly. I love everything you guys said. Moving on to the next question. How can mentorship and collaboration among women in tech help pave the way for a more inclusive and diverse future in the industry?
I think I can actually speak to that pretty well. I'm definitely, obviously very new in my career. I have been at Huron for almost a year and have just a couple years of experience in my career overall, including everything pre-college graduation and post-college graduation. And at my current company, they have an enjoyable model where they give you like a coach. So you have a coach, you have a mentor. They have a couple different models of support where you're not just dependent on your manager for like performance and any type of feedback like that. You have a couple different avenues of support. Just a nice little support system. And that is something that has been superb for me. Having that network of mentors and being able to reach out to anyone for literally any question. Every day I feel like I can message, my mentor, and I'm like, hey, I have a dumb question. And even if it's something I've already asked before, which I would personally be like, oh, it's kind of a dumb question, he'll tell me, that's not a dumb question. I actually don't expect you to know that. You've only seen that once. Yeah, you've been here for almost a year, but given the breadth and depth of our product, you will literally have only seen that once. So you have to give yourself some grace. And just having someone there and especially someone, he's one of the founding members of our team. He's been there for 10 years. Having someone who's that much senior there to remind you to give yourself grace, especially when you're so new in your career and you're a little bit of a perfectionist and you beat yourself up about maybe not knowing something, even when you've been somewhere for a year, which sounds like, you should be an expert on this product. And clients expect you to be an expert on this product. And you can talk like you're an expert on this product. It's nice. It lets you feel like, okay, I don't need to take this so seriously. Like, yes, it's my job, but I don't need to dwell on the fact that I didn't know this one question, even though I might have asked it once or even twice already. Like, it's okay to not remember this one little nuanced thing. Like, even this person who's been here for 10 years doesn't know every single thing that I've asked him. Even he asks other people sometimes. So it just reminds you to give yourself grace, and you know, you just are always continuously learning.
Yeah, I would say find your mentor. That is one thing that has really helped me in my career. You will find times in your career where you're going to doubt yourself, where you're not going to know the answer, and you're going to be really hard on yourself. And you're going to want to solicit different opinions, different perspectives. And I say that especially as a woman in tech, and other, you know, minority groups will probably have the same problem, is that you are under an institution, so to speak, where a certain type of thinking is the accepted way of thinking. So when you come in with your new way of thinking, especially if you are kind of trailblazing, you're going to get the doubt. You're going to get the stereotypes applied to you, and you're going to question, why am I even here? So you're going to want to get your mentor or mentors and ask them, hey, in your experience, what have you done here? Hey, have you ever experienced this sort of, you know, set of microaggressions? Yes, this is what I've done. Oh, so not that it's okay, but okay, it kind of resets, it normalizes. It's like, okay, I'm not alone here. I can have that confidence to move forward. So if I were to give you all one piece of advice, is to find your mentor and establish that relationship. It's going to really help you in your careers.
I second that, especially, you know, I've been very, very lucky to have some very amazing mentors in my life. But, you know, I don't want to sound poor or ungrateful to them, but, you know, what I felt like a gap was having a woman mentor, because my, you know, fellow mentors who were male, they could talk to me, they could explain certain situations, but the situations were, some of them were unique to me for being the gender that I am. And I think it is important to everyone to form that, especially young women emerging in the space, to find women who have been in the industry, experienced, and bridge that knowledge gap on how to handle those situations, microaggressions, or any for that matter, right? Technical skills, keep honing yourself, that is all right. But to position yourself in certain situations, that I really wish I had more fellow women mentors in the space to discuss those things. So that's a gap, I feel.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for that, because that is exactly what something that I want to share and talk about is that I think it's so important for us to take that. So it's so important for us to be pulling in to find our mentor, but also to mentor others whenever the opportunity comes up. I remember, for example, a couple years ago, there was this nonprofit that reached out, and they were like, hey, we're looking for mentors who can speak Spanish and can mentor these high school girls in Mexico. Of course, I am in Illinois, so I didn't go physically, but I was able to reach out to these girls and teach them, you know, through their school hours, that they can access electricity and computers while they're at school, not later. The same thing happens in Ecuador right now. There's no electricity for several hours of the day. I have found that, you know, people are very resilient through their times and everything, but it's so important to model what they can be, and that is why it's so important also to be authentic. Because speaking about productivity, I love that, because that was so important in my career to see, like, you know, higher ups in the company and people who had like a lot of experience actually be vulnerable and say, oh, I don't know this actually, and oh, I can't teach you that actually because I don't know. Let's go look it up, and this is how you can find information. So yeah, to become mentors, and when you do, to have the courage to be vulnerable with your mentees is something that is, I think, so important for the youth coming our way, so that they can feel empowered to get into their own, to come into their own.
Moving on to the next question. As technology continues to evolve rapidly, what strategies do you employ to stay ahead of the curve and ensure your work remains relevant and impactful for future generations?
I would love to hear from Jen from this.
Oh, sure.
She's very innovative.
Well, first and foremost, I always make sure I keep time to study the latest trends. You want to make sure like you have everything in your toolbox and at the ready, kind of practicing new things, trying to innovate, and share with your team, hey, look at this cool thing I tried. What do you think? Also infusing that culture into your team as well. Innovate. Hey, it's okay to make a mistake. Let's learn from it. Let's just keep that culture of failing forward and continuing to learn. And so I think it goes back to the culture that you set with those you work with in companies or in teams. Is just that idea of it's okay to innovate. Like, sure, we all have deadlines to push this feature forward and go, hot fix. But if you don't leave time to innovate and try new things, you're never gonna explore and discover what might have been because you didn't take the time to just move forward with it. So.
Yeah. Apart from, this is something that you need to understand is the flexibility. Staying agile is everything. Things are not going to stay the same. They will constantly, rapidly change, and you have to adapt with that change and emerge. Sorry if I can say something. I remember after high school, I was asked to choose subjects going into 11th and 12th grade. I said, oh, what do you want to study? I said, oh, I want to continue studying computer science. Believe it or not, the principal of my school says oh, why don't you opt for chemistry? Because then, it is like with computer science, you have to continuously keep learning. How would you find work-life balance once you're married? Where would you find time for innovation? It was highly, highly biased, right? And B, it was so wrong because who says you don't have to innovate even in the field of chemistry? If it wasn't for the innovation in biochemistry, nanotechnology or anything, we wouldn't be having the resources that we do today. We wouldn't have been able to overcome COVID, for example. So to say that, oh, don't study this versus study that just because you can find a more cushioned life for women is just a wrong attitude altogether. Yeah.
Well, Tabby, what about you?
Let me say the question one more time. I just blanked on the question real quick.
It's okay. As technology continues to evolve rapidly, what strategies do you employ to stay ahead of the curve and ensure your work remains relevant and impactful for future generations?
Yes. So, actually, interestingly enough, my company is going through a major transition that's going to require me to jump through quite a bit of hoops to deal with that. So, my company's entire software is migrating from, and it's been going on for a couple years, but this year is when it's finally taking off and going public. The transition is going customer facing this year. Our entire system is going from a Microsoft SQL Server base to AWS, which is a huge transition. It's been super expensive and super long. So I'm going to be faced with probably that situation in my professional life for one of the first times. But historically, it's mostly been through school, and so professionally, it's going to be interesting to do this for one of the first times. My plan truly is just to do what I've always done, is study, like take the AWS exams, talk to people, learn, like
Get certified.
try to get certified, and we'll see. Just roll with the punches. I think we are in a field that just moves so fast. We commit to being lifelong learners.
Yeah.
That's kind of just what we did. I don't have really good insight on that.
No, that's great. Thank you all for all your answers. I second all of it for staying on top. So, and yeah, definitely make time in your calendar and have it written out in your calendar. This is the time when I am going to be studying, reading, whatever it is that you need to do. Something else is that really good curated newsletters are a great way to see where things are going. I follow some, like community leaders and experts online on Instagram, the Twitter platform, X now. And you know what? This is the most important thing, because like this is just seconding what all of you wonderful women just said, but something that I would like to say to about the impacting the future and making sure that it's impactful for people coming on. We're living right now, like in our times. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Her world, I was telling my husband the other day, oh my gosh, she's growing up so fast. She is going to college soon, and she's going to be majoring in something that I don't understand. Because I think that, the world keeps evolving and it's just so different. The world that I live in now, I assure you, it's not like the world that my parents describe. And it is not the world that my grandparents describe at all. So, and it's funny, my grandfather lived here in Chicago, and he has pictures of those corn cob buildings. They weren't even built yet. It was a very different life. So even though we live in the same city, but 80 years apart. So that makes a huge difference. So the way to make sure that it remains impactful for younger folks is to, I think it's so important for them to come to the table and for us to not assume what we want to build for them or anything, but really we're building, what's that adage? I think it's from George Washington. It's you plant the seed of the tree of the shape that you won't sit beneath or something. That is what I think it's best to strive for. If you want to build something big, or if you want to build something great, yeah, you probably won't get to use it or see it, but hopefully it will be something good for your children or grandchildren to use. And for that, we need to ask them what kind of life they want to live and what kind of world they want to live in. So having them at the table and having younger people have space for their opinions to be heard is a very important thing for things to be impactful for future generations.
Nice. So we're gonna get a little personal. How do you navigate and challenge stereotypes and biases within the tech industry? And what advice would you give to aspiring women in tech facing similar obstacles? Whoever wants to start, you guys can just.
So what biases have we faced, and how do we overcome them?
Yeah, how do you navigate and challenge stereotypes and biases within the tech industry as a woman?
I can share a story.
And what's some advice?
Absolutely. So when I first was in tech, I would go to meetups and stuff, really interested in learning different technologies and everything, and so wanted to network, get to know people. And I was, aspiring computer scientist in college, just learning my way. And I go to this meetup, kind of chit-chatting with folks, and so, kind of chatting. Some older guys chatting with me. He's like, so, is your boyfriend here or something? Like, no, I'm here. Oh, do you program? In a very condescending way. Yeah, I do. I study computer science. Oh, okay. So I absolutely have faced, microaggressions just like that all throughout my career. And I will say how to navigate them. I say, there's this phrase from The Art of War by Lao Tzu. It's like, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, your victory will never land in doubt. So use it. Understand that this is the environment that you're in. It's not fair. You're going to be stereotyped. You're going to be not given the benefit of the doubt as a woman. In my experience, I've in other, underrepresented minorities, we've had to produce twice as much just to be seen as equals to some others. Oftentimes, the stereotype of being, a blonde white woman, if I may say, it's I'm expected to be like computers, that is what's expected of me. And so sometimes, honestly, I lean into it and I let people think I don't know anything, but I really know stuff. And then you surprise them, and then then suddenly they respect you. It's unfortunate, it's an unfortunate truth, but I will say a way to navigate it is just understand that you do have the cards stacked against you, and just make that strategic move, use what you got in a way to overcome those barriers, because then you know, in my experience, once I have wowed people with like, oh wow, the blonde knows what she's talking about, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. I respect you now. Like, now you're not the blind girl anymore. Now you're the architect. Like, cool. So it just kind of gets you in the door, and it's kind of a roundabout way to get in there, but they are unfortunate, hard truths about being a woman or underrepresented group in this space.
I think that's very well said. I don't even know what to add to that because those, I can't say a blonde girl experience is the same. No, that's not for me. But it's so common being overspoken in meeting. You're, you know, something I'm saying the very next moment, you know, it's not being listened, but suddenly the other guy repeats the same thing. Oh, it's a great idea there. Like, hello. So it's one thing that you are learning to speak for yourself, advocating for yourself, but make sure you find that support within the workplace or everywhere else, because it may just be, for me, I'm most of the time, except when Jen is in the meetings, most of the time only tech women on the table in the meeting. And so I have to learn to find my voice. That doesn't mean that I'm going to tear everybody down just to raise myself up. That is wrong. You build everybody up together. And when they see you doing that, pulling everybody to drive into a mission, that's where, you know, so never doubt yourself, stay resilient, focused, trust in yourself. Trust in your skills, and I don't know, these things will keep coming your way, but learn to just, don't make it personal.
Yes.
Don't make it personal.
Yeah.
Valeria, Octavia, you guys want to add on to that?
Would you like to share something? All right, so sure, I thank you so much Jen, for sharing that. I love that. And Fatima as well. And to go along with what Fatima said about, so something that my grandmother used to tell me all the time and that I love is you don't lose any, like a candle doesn't lose any light by lighting another candle, or it doesn't lose any fire. So that's where we go back to mentorship and being, to have the courage to be vulnerable with other people so they can see. And I love that we're sharing these stories, because people watching online and people here can know that even though we are wherever we are in our careers, we have gone through this so that you can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, or that we're here with you. So something else is that to also, again, offer yourself as a mentor for people, to not only share that you've had these experiences, but also with what Jen was saying, provide those opportunities for people, because there's people, because just like the world is the way that it is, and not only will we be, sometimes treated lesser than, or to have to deal with these things, but sometimes, plain and simple, they will not hire you or give you an opportunity. They'll take a project away from you or anything like that. So like, to model the world that we want to do whenever we do get to a position of power, and when we are, a project manager or a leader in any way, that we do give opportunities, and it's important that we understand that we all have biases. I do as well. So it's important to know like for me, what I do is to try to learn how to respect others as best as I can where they are at, not where I think that they should be, and to learn about my own biases so that I can see, oh, you know what, I think, so to learn to recognize that. Also, I think it's very important if you're going to leadership positions, so that you are not perpetuating those problems.
Yeah, everyone has said really good points. Thank you all for sharing. Like, especially what you said about, addressing biases and not perpetuating them, especially if you're going into leadership. I think the only thing I wanted to add is that, it comes with the territory as women. That's part of our experience, unfortunately, in this territory. But I think it's not even just about our experience as women. It's everyone experiences this when you're in the room. So obviously this is about the things we experience as women, but even it's men's experience when you witness these things to also speak up. And speaking up and addressing these things when you see them is the most important thing you can do, especially in the moment. whether it's gently saying, hey, like, if you see a colleague, you know, speaking over someone, or speaking over someone who and cutting them off, saying, hey, actually, you know, they weren't finished talking. Let's let them finish. That is the simplest way and the easiest way and politest way to stop it right there. And if that colleague, maybe who has not done this before, or maybe they're a repeat offender, people who do those things and have that repeatedly do that behavior, when they realize they can't do that anymore, consciously or subconsciously, it'll change. And if it doesn't change with gentle correction, that's when you address it, whether it's with HR or a manager. But addressing it is the most important thing you can do, and that's everyone's responsibility, not just the people that are being aggressed against.
Yeah, beautifully well said, done. Just to add on a little bit myself, as a woman in tech, those scenarios are so true, Jen. You know, I've experienced some myself, and as women, we must stick with each other, support one another, and it's very important to never take what those people say seriously, because at the end of the day, we only better ourselves. We're not here to better other people. So we gotta stay true to ourselves. Moving on to our next question. How can women in tech collaborate across borders and cultures to drive innovation and positive change on a more global scale?
Love to hear
I would love-
Brianna. No, you have to say that.
Me?
Come on, you were giving such a wonderful example earlier with, you know, coordination, the school in Ecuador and
Thank
Mexico.
you.
I want to hear more.
Sure. So I was just gonna call out Fatima because
Yeah.
of your data, because of data and like big data. And that's where like my mind
Yeah,
went.
no, it is pretty interesting how the landscape changes for you, whether it is cross-border, whether you know you're within, because I think the biggest change that we can make is what you're doing, reaching out. I still, in countries like India, there are in curriculums you have a subject called home science. What do you do? 2 hours. There's a lab in the school which has stove tops. They teach you how to cook, how to sew, how to knit. I'm like, why is this not offered to the boys section of the school? Why is mechanics not available as an option in this side of the school? Right, so those are policy changes that need to happen worldwide. But I want to listen to what you have been able to do hands-on.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I will share one of mine real quick. I grew up in Ecuador, and very much, so I have a few boy cousins who are about my age. And the thing is, we also grew up in non-co-ed, so boys only, girls only schools. And I will tell you, look, it's hard, and I'm a parent too, so I get that, and my daughter's gonna go to a normal co-ed school.
I know, right?
But I understand that, you know, parents have a choice in where their children go to school, and so I'm not saying this is the answer for everybody, but my personal problem with separating boys from girls is that it's too easy to hold girls back, you know? So like what happens all the time from where I come from is that I would go, like after school, I would see my cousins, and then we would compare report cards or something, or we would like do homework, and we were in the same grade, but they were in the boys' school, and then they would be like, oh my gosh, that sounds fun, sewing? I have physics. I have something called pre-calculus. What is that? Current events. We had a class called current events, which the whole class was steal the newspaper from your mom and bring it to school so you can learn how to read it, so you can keep your husband's friends like entertained with conversation when they come and you host them. You know, so like that was the, you know, right? So that was the experience that I had growing up, and then thankfully I went to like a normal high school. But all through my like grade school, middle school, that was the experience, and it was so frustrating because when I got to my normal high school, I was so behind in math and science because I had the sewing class and the reading the newspaper class. So that is just so important for policy to change and for to become educated about those things, because I think that the parents who made this, I don't know. And like every parent has their own choice in where they send their children to school, but I can't imagine that they know how far behind their children are falling. Because the thing is that, for example, in Ecuador, it's not like, oh, women are not allowed in engineering, but you're behind in math, so far behind the boys, so you're never gonna make it.
So yeah, so it kind of becomes like, how do you overcome these? And that is why I was so inspired by what you were saying about having those sessions with those kids, because now we are in a world where we have this technology of remote work, remote collaboration. So be a part of a bigger organization of women in tech. You know, there are so many organizations out there that you can participate, have these conferences, attend conferences in person if you can, if your company sponsors, and see if you can, be a part of that change. For example, there are too many things that people in medicine field do, like, Doctors Across Borders, and there are many such programs across for technology as well, to go and be able to teach. So if you have time, Inspira, definitely engage in that.
Yeah, and just to finish off with that, be part of Women Tech Makers that we're also part of with Octavia and Amanda. That is how that nonprofit found my information, and I, have on there I speak Spanish, and like this is my skill set, and that's how they contacted me. So making your time available, you don't necessarily need to travel, but basically you're kind of having to circumvent and go under the fact that they're like, still places where like girls are not allowed to like learn math, or at least math at the level that boys are learning and stuff like that. So you can have that opportunity to mentor young women and that, so that they also have the chance to become like at least at the same level as the boys are. So what are your experiences and your thoughts?
I think fundamentally, worldwide, but even here in the U.S., is just we still live in a very biased world, as we know, kind of a world built for, the man goes out, he's the breadwinner, the woman comes home, she's expected to do certain roles, and we don't accommodate for that. And I know that there has been some great kind of findings when we all had to do remote work. The fact that women were able to have that flexible schedule because they could work, but they could also fulfill unfortunately, their expected duties at home. With that flexibility, more women were staying in the workforce. We have to change that narrative, of course, that, women are not, they should not be the primary child carer. Like in many ways, it's expected of me, oh, you had a child? You're gonna take a few years off? No, actually I'm not. But like, that's like the expectation. So I think it all starts from kind of reshaping, even here as we are in the US, very, a lot of technologies at hand, just making that supportive environment so that we can have that flexibility. We can still, we can slowly change, I guess, the expectations. Because it's unfortunate, again, the world that we live in is, there are certain expectations and biases thrown upon us. How can we navigate that? Well, give us that flexibility to navigate that. So it's just one step forward along a big, long journey. But,
What about you, Octavia?
I feel like everything was said that needed to be said.
Thank you everyone for all your, and one last thing that I wanted to say, just so everybody knows, in case you know any girls that are in high school or around that age, right here in Chicago we have GirlCon coming in June. So it's geared towards high school aged girls. So if you know anybody, you can direct them to GirlCon here in Chicago in June, and I think they'll have a lot of fun.
Nice. We're gonna move on to our last question. So if you guys have questions, we'll give you some time to do that. So what is the biggest challenge you have faced on your journey in STEM? And what is one piece of advice you will give to the or the future generations to come?
I would love to hear from Octavia because you're new in your career. So like, how do you break through to like since you did it so like recently?
And if you all could say something.
My biggest challenge in my journey would actually be my first year of college. And my experience with tech was a bit more interesting. I started actually when I was 13 because I got lucky, I would say. I went to Lane Tech, if anyone knows that high school. And Lane Tech has this program called an academic center, which essentially is where they start middle schoolers in high school. So I started high school like 13, and I was there for 6 years. So I was in high school for 6 years. But they gave me one period that was an elective, and the choice was you did either art and music, and you did 1 semester of art, 1 semester of music, and then, or you could just do 1 full year of tech. I was like, well, I don't want to do music. Forget that. Let me just do tech. I'll learn something new. Cool. And turns out, it's like, oh, this is super fun, and I'm kind of good at this. And then my teacher was like, yeah, there's going to be all these jobs in like 10 years, and you can make money. I was like, sign me up. And Lane actually, as a high school, has one of the most diverse and largest computer science programs of any high school in the country. Super lucky. So that was my start. Before I even hit college, I had experience with web development, I had experience with microarchitecture, I had experience using laser cutters, 3D printers, I had experience back-end, front-end, I had a ton of experience. I was one of the regional winners for the National Center for Women in Information Technology's Aspirations in Computing Award. I just did a ton of stuff in high school for tech. And so then I ended up getting into the Illinois Institute of Technology, got a full ride scholarship, they were gonna pay for my master's, like this whole thing. And then my first year of college, I'm hitting the ground running. And my first semester, I have a horrible time. And it's really rough for me, not because of the academics, but because I'm just having a really rough time in my personal life. And I'm on my own for the first time, I'm working a full-time job, I'm learning how to adjust from life to college and working a full-time job and having a full-time school load. And my academic advisor, who was also the head of the computer science department at that time, tells me, he's like, you should drop out. It's like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, it would be cheaper for you. And I was like, I'm on a full ride scholarship. What are you talking about? And he tries to backtrack and take it back, and it was a whole ordeal. I ended up getting offered a position to do research for the university the summer after, and I actually I got offered to do it because one of the researchers who also went to the university as a physical computing major, way back in the day, she was the one leading the research for the PhD candidate or whatever. And so she offered it to a bunch of the other women in the computer science program, there was very few. There was probably 15 total. It was a small computer science program. And so I got to meet all these other girls, and I was telling them the story, and they were like, yeah, he's told me that too. It's like, oh, so it's not just me. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. It was absurd to me that a department head, because keep in mind, I'm coming from high school where I'm getting all these accolades, having all these great experiences at this massive computer science department, and now I'm coming into college, and this is my first experience with administration that is like, you shouldn't be here. What are you doing here? And it was like whiplash. I was like, I don't want to be here. So I walked away from a full ride scholarship, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I don't want to be somewhere where the university is actively working against me. I have enough problems in my life. I don't need the institution that's supposed to be on my degree in 5 years to be the obstacle working against me. And that was terrifying, because it's like, how do you walk away from $200,000, $300,000 tuition there is like $70K. It's like horrifying. But yeah, that was the biggest obstacle.
Thanks for sharing.
But I graduated,
Yeah.
so I'm good.
That is so inspirational, and thank you. And I'm personally drawing inspiration from it because you know, I taught throughout my life. Sometimes, and I can't blame my parents, they were trying to give me a best life, but being of a woman or a girl growing up in the Middle East back then wasn't easy. Now things are very different. I wish it was back then, but I always, you know, was told, oh, you cannot do that because you're a girl. You cannot do that. And I guess, don't say I can't do it. I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing it. But the reason I find inspiration in your story is because up until now, or not now in this moment, but you know, till I was always kind of finding, oh, if I am a little bit behind, it's because where I grew up or where the opportunities I got offered. College first year was very difficult for me because school in Saudi Arabia I went to was academically much behind to my fellow students who joined when I came to India. I went to India for my bachelor's and first year. These kids were prepping for IIT entrance exam before we came, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to come through non-resident Indian quota because guess what? I don't have to write an entrance exam, easy entry. I was up against that talent, and I had to keep pushing myself. And then one thing I got lucky at was in this industry. I work with this lady. She is director at Granger now, and she said, Fatima, the most challenging phase of my career was when I stepped into my role of being a director. And she told me her challenges and why it was so difficult for her. And actually when I stepped into this role, I'm lucky I was prepared because I had that person to tell me, but those challenges were real. And I had to navigate them on my own, but it's no matter where you are, there is this bias, and then you have to keep fighting against it.
Yeah, for me, the question is the biggest challenge getting into tech.
Biggest challenge you faced in your journey.
Your journey. That was, yeah. So for me, I immigrated to the States for college, and I would just second your stories. But basically, for me, you know what? So for something different, it was a big cultural shock, a huge cultural shock. Everything is different. I remember the first day I met a friend. In no way, shape, or form was I like interested romantically in him. But like for example, in Ecuador, you kiss hello, and he came to pick me up just as friends. We were gonna go like grab a pizza or something, and I said hi, and then he went, oh my god. And like even stuff like that, you know. So even starting from like how you say hello to somebody, how do you talk to someone, the fact that it's all in English because it's not my first language, that was all, you know, all very shocking, all very different, just so much to get used to on top of the workload. So I kind of want to second also like freshman year was incredibly challenging because on top of the academics, mostly it was like the cultural shock. It was all just so different. Honestly, I hadn't like traveled much up until that time. I had only ever been to the States to Miami to visit my grandparents. And if you go go somewhere to just like visit family, if you've had that experience and that's the only context you know that place in, it's not like I knew Miami. I had just gone to their living room and then go back home. So yeah, I didn't really know how to talk to people, how to write in English. It's very different than Spanish. How you, so like not only grammar, but like how do you construct, like how do you write your ideas and put it down on paper? I assure you, it's like a whole difference that you can only learn through like a lot of experience. There's not really like a composition class to teach you how to do that, you know, not really. How to express yourself in this different language.
The culture shock is real. Like when I moved to India from Saudi Arabia, I was from complete girls' school to quit college, the guy comes and says hello. I was fearful. I couldn't say hi back because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna turn around and go. I'm not supposed to be talking. Like, it was such ingrained in me. And thanks for sharing that. It is not just, something that I can draw parallel to, but also in a very weird way comforting. Sorry. It's comforting.
No, I find all your stories, like, I'm sorry that, like, that we go through things, but that's the thing about, like, being vulnerable and daring to be vulnerable, like, with other people, and when you're mentoring others and stuff, is that they're painful stories, but that is where we can all draw strength from, And what is your experience?
Oh yeah, just funny. First year in college, how many times have people asked me, "Are you looking for your husband degree?" Like, it was just so disrespectful. I will say one of my main challenges, and this could have been just like an artifact of being 20 years ago and everything, is just the people judge me on my appearance, and so I really made up for it by just studying a lot. As you can see, I have, or maybe not, yeah, I have a PhD. So I have a PhD in neuroscience, wanted to study computational neuroscience. I have 2 master's degrees. Like, I joined startups. Like, I really felt like I had to, because people would judge me negatively based on my appearance. I'm like, well, fine, I gotta flex this, this other muscle. And so that was really my major challenge, is like, people would not give me benefit of the doubt. People would judge me just based on how I look, and that's it. It wasn't fair. So that kind of led me to just really studying a lot and trying to prove myself in other ways. So in terms of advice, then I would say, again, I guess back to the beginning, just know your space, know the world, know that it can be stacked. The world is not fair. And just know the world and strategize. Strategy is such an important part of being successful in any career. Don't take it lightly. So, read some books on how you can, strategize and make a name for yourself in the world. So, like, you are being seen for who you are.
I love that so much. And is there, not to put you on the spot, but like, are there any books that you recommend about strategizing for your career and strategizing for the fact that the deck is stacked against you?
Yeah, I actually have 2 authors I really like. Well, Lao Tzu, The Art of War, is a great book that's applicable to so many things in life. And then I'm a fan of Robert Greene. He's got a series of books about strategy and personal development that I found a lot of value in, so I'd recommend those books.
Talking about finding something, there are so many free online courses. Harvard offers courses. I always, anybody kind of puts in, I have them on my phone, I screenshot it so that I can go, and these are like resilient leadership, path to happiness, public speaking, creating public value. All these are Harvard professor-led courses available for free, so tap into it. That is the good part, that knowledge comes easy now, so really look into that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so Harvard, like open courseware, like MIT open courseware?
Yeah.
Are they on YouTube? Do you know?
No, they are through their
Their
website. You just go register 14 hours, 40 hours, 30, depending on the kind of course, and it's free. And that is a content from, the most prestigious university professors out there. Learn from it.
Nice. Well, that was awesome. And a round of applause for our wonderful panelists, please. So now I'll take the time. If you guys have any questions for the panelists, Joelle will go around and give you the microphone. If you guys don't have any questions, then
Yeah, and also, hold on, I know it'll work. I fixed it. I hope I fixed it. I lied. If you're on the stream, put it on the chat. I've been watching it. Thank you for the conversation there. There's some great conversation about women in code, that program being shut down, and some folks actually didn't know. So about 2 weeks ago, that was announced. So if there's any questions from the folks in chat, anyone in the room, let me know, and I'll bring the mic that doesn't work. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, no. It doesn't work.
Hello. Oh, it works. Thank you for sharing everything. It was really wonderful. I have somewhat, maybe you could come up with a dumb question, but how can you find mentor? Where do you find it? Yeah. Where do you find it?
First, there are no dumb questions. So remember that. That is your key step into building confidence. There's no dumb question. And then I just had to say it.
and get it out of the way, but I'll let these amazing ladies who network so heavily kind of speak up to how you. Actually, Activia, how are you doing it?
Well, my mentor is technically assigned at work, but truly, like, it's not as scary as you think, and it's also just not quite as like formal as you would think. It's really just, it's just someone you can rely on and feel vulnerable with, and someone you can depend on for content in that way, but not someone who has to consent to that dynamic. Not someone who's like, oh, this person's bugging me all the time, you know? So I would say you just have to ask someone. If you see someone who maybe you work with all the time and you're like, wow, they're really knowledgeable, they're a great resource, just ask them. Definitely, I would say probably someone you work with, someone you're around consistently, and
your university.
Yeah,
Go
even at
to
your
a
university,
professor.
a professor,
Old bosses too.
old bosses, someone who is definitely, you have to identify them as a good resource, and make the time to meet with them. Like, ask questions, you know, be casual about it, but then also just make dedicated time to meet with them. Like, I have a standing meeting with my mentor every other week, and I don't know what we're gonna talk about, it's just 30 minutes, but anything that I wanna talk about, it's like, hey, can we talk about this issue on this project? I'm not really sure about it. Or, oh, actually I have a topic I wanna talk about, I'll save that for our 30 minutes. So yeah, just ask someone, to be honest.
I love
And if-
that. You know, sorry, please keep going.
I'll say, oh, and if they're not good at it, or you feel like you're not getting as much value as you want out of it, you can fire them.
Yeah, no, I love that. Absolutely second that. And something that I just want to add is that so the mentor that you're looking for will be for, you know, whatever you want help in. You know what I mean? So like in my case, so for example, there can be somebody who, because I find mentors, it depends on the relationship you have with them. So it can be like a 30-minute meeting once a week, or it can be like, oh, we'll have lunch for 5 hours, and then there'll be more conversation, stuff like that. Just my point was gonna be that, like, for example, it can be someone that you work with or that you know that is super technically competent, and that is what you want mentorship in. But for example, they don't have their life to, because we're all humans, they're not going to be perfect. So I just wanted to be, for what was saying that like your mentor is not, you shouldn't look for like a perfect person to be your mentor, but somebody who you appreciate what they're doing and what you want mentorship in. Because for example, then they'll be like, oh, but I don't know, they don't use hand sanitizer and I really don't like that. I don't know, like that can be kind of gross, that specific example. But like, yeah, they won't be perfect. But yeah, it's important that they're good at what you're looking for. And also how you get them, I would also go with exactly what Octavia just said, just ask them. Like I remember once I was at a job where like I was a junior software engineer, and there was this going on to senior level, and honestly at the time I was like scared of titles. I was just scared, like, and I was just starting, and like I was scared of like the senior, like just the word senior, like I would be like, I remember, yeah, like once I remember I was onboarding onto this new project, and they were like, oh, we're going to, well, like the technical leadership decided that we're going to start rebasing, and I was like, oh my god, I've never rebased before. Like I am just used to like pushing and then like not being like something so decisive for me at the time. And I remember so I was like, oh, I haven't rebased before, and then so nervous and scared, and like the technical leader like sat next to me, and he was like, hey, we can go over this later, and I was just kind of frozen in space, because I was just scared of that, just like the title, I guess. But then, but I did want to learn more about, you know, to keep growing in my technical skills. So there was this one engineer that he was just like the best. Like he was just so good. Barely, you could barely find
find anything when you were doing code review because he was just like amazing, you know. So I asked him. I just sent him out sent him in writing an email, and I was like, hey, I really like, you know, we've been working together for 2 months, and I do your code reviews, and they're like, I'm learning so much from your code reviews that I would like a more formal like thing. Do you think we could meet once a week and go over some things, and then you could teach me? Because the thing is that he did my code reviews, and then of course, you know, so I was learning a lot from all the notes that he had for my code, because I was learning a lot from him. So I was like, hey, could we do something a little bit more formal once a week and meet, and then I could work on the things that you recommend that I work on. So that was so valuable for me, and he was my mentor for like a year and a half or so, and he was fantastic. So yeah, just to second exactly what you said, just reach out and tell them, you know what, reach out with an agenda, what you want, why you're seeking their advice or their mentorship. Like, this is what I admire in you, A, B, C, D, and this is what I want help in. And also, if it's someone that knows you and that works with you and they have more experience, they might know sometimes also what you need to work on if it's technical. They're like, oh, I see that you're flailing and this and that, let's work on it, you know. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, maybe there's one question.
Oh,
Yeah, there is one more question on the live stream, and the question is, have you guys experienced imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it?
Oh, 1,000%.
All the time.
Yes. So the answer is yes. And then how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
You know, for me, some like piece of advice that I heard that is very like important, I think, is to really know what you're good at, and to remember that, like, that piece of data, and to have it like to know that that is true, and like the way that you know that is with actual data, and to have it written down. So something that I do and a tool that I use is that I have for personal gains and gains in my work life, I have an actual, like, I have a list for example, 2023, January, all the things, like, in actual numbers, exactly what I did that makes me proud of myself in like my personal life, and then in my work life. So I did this, I increased this thing to 100%. I did, so basically, like, you're having a job interview with yourself at the end of every week, and then at the end of every month. So I have it like, January I did all of this, February I did all of this, and then sometimes I go over it. So whenever I'm like having imposter syndrome, I go like, oh, I have all these achievements that I actually did. And then also something else that I have is just like in Legally Blonde, I keep a record of what they call snaps in Legally Blonde. So if you've seen that movie, it's like good things that people have said about you. Whenever it's in, you know, if it's somebody saying something, you don't have that. But if they put it in writing, then I take a screenshot or I keep it, and then I have like a list of all of those things. And then if I'm feeling down or like I have imposter syndrome, I have it also like, oh, these are all the things that like my manager said, my coworker said about how like I'm actually doing good work. And also the fact that like you've gotten promoted, keep that in mind. The fact that you have your PhD, that you have a computer science degree, you have, you know, like all like your accolades as well. So I think that it's important to like also keep track of all these things.
No, you're right, and I think getting older, you know, I used to be somebody like, oh, I need to get to this question before anybody else can answer, or I'm gonna stay up till 4 in the morning to prove how good I am. It doesn't work because at the end of the day, you get exhausted. What you need to learn is to draw boundaries for yourself and really know what will make you happy, what will make you confident and content. If you cannot be content from within, you will be always chasing the next thing. Before you know, there's no time for friends, no time for family, you're consumed by your work, and you're still not happy. So be very, very smart about knowing exactly what you want, being confident in your skills, developing your skills, so that, you know, if somebody's saying that XYZ is wrong, you have the confidence to say, no, it's not wrong because of so-and-so reason. And having that confidence is enough to get you over your imposter syndrome or any kind of fears that you may be living in. But first and foremost, stop chasing things. Know what you really want. There's always going to be thousands of opinions of what people think of you. Some will think good, some will think bad. Knowing who you are from within that's all you need. Your own approval, nobody else's.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I've just had it, obviously throughout life and being in tech from a young age that happens, and in college and in my professional life. But what I've noticed recently, and I actually didn't start doing this, I do something similar to you, but I didn't start doing it to deal with imposter syndrome. I started doing it because I had planned to ask for a raise like mid-year out of the raise promotion cycle. But I started keeping a list of like all the quote extra things that I had done that weren't really part of that were exceeded the expectation of my current level. So like on my very first project with a client, like very first ever, never had done a project ever. And our projects were pretty long, pretty big, like 6-month projects. Instead of just one portion of the project, I took on my portion, and then midway through the project, another consultant on that project, their portion basically ended up like they had 2 portions. They're not called portions, I just don't really know. I don't know how to explain it, that makes sense. Their portion ended up being unstable, and they had 2 portions. One of their portions ended up being unstable, and so that unstable piece they had to dedicate a lot more time to, and they could not dedicate adequate time to that second piece. And so that consultant was more experienced than I was, but his other piece I actually ended up taking. So I had 2 portions for a 6-portion project as my very first project. They're modules, but I had 2 modules on my very first project, which is basically like could be considered the work of 2 consultants on my very first project, which was a pretty big deal for my very first time. So that was something like I would write down, like any extra work outside, even if it was like, oh, I found this product bug, and I, reported it, and I actually got on a call with the product owner, and we troubleshot, and I just did all this extra work for this product bug, and the product bug I found actually ended up resulting in a hotfix for the product. Just tracking things like that. I did all that and ended up with, after like 6 months, ended up with a list, a pretty sizable list, because I was planning to ask for that raise. But it ended up actually helping a lot with my imposter syndrome. And it obviously helps when you're asking for a raise or promotion. So I recommend doing that for both reasons. So just, tracking like any accomplishments, but like it's not even just about your accomplishments, because I think people think about your accomplishments. You think about, oh yeah, what did I really accomplish? Like, you don't think about, oh, I reported a product bug as an accomplishment, but it's even just a little bit extra. Like, how did I be a little bit extra today? How did I just exceed a little bit further? Like a little bit, 1% more a day. And I think having something to actually reflect on in those times when you do feel like an imposter, it definitely helps a lot.
And I'll say these are all great things. I think the one thing though is these are all kind of external validator things, so it's still good to keep track, but I think at the end of the day too, no matter how, you're always going to be searching for those external validations that don't always address your imposter syndrome, at least speaking for myself. For my PhD I studied sensation and perception, and it's the idea that what we see through our actuators, our eyes, our ears, our skin, that's how we perceive, that's how we sense the world, but we perceive it much differently. So the world as we see it today is not the world, it is your perception of the world. So how you think about your space in the world is not true. your opinion of yourself is not true because it's based on maybe the recency effect of different, people telling you like, oh, you failed, you did this, you did that. That's not true. So I think something that has really helped me a lot is the idea of reframing. So if you are down on yourself about something, oh yeah, I've got all these great accolades, and they gave me all those compliments, but man, I'm so behind on this, I'm never gonna make it. You reframe it, you're like, but what did I do? Look what I did. Like I really, trailblazed this. I really got this ahead of the game. I did deliver on this. I am actually really good. And you're not really changing reality. You're just changing your perception of reality. And there are an infinite number of perceptions. So I would say if you ever feel that imposter syndrome, just keep that in mind that the world as you see it is not the truth. And just reframe it to something that's going to suit you, to push you forward, because then that's going to open up opportunities for you that you would have otherwise closed on yourself.
Very well said. Thank you so much. That is so good.
Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there's any books or podcasts that you recommend that offers interesting perspectives, whether it's your career, tech, or anything in life in general.
I like, is it Alex Xu? Is that how you say Alex XU? He has, he's the founder of Byte Go, I think. It's more like architecture and like tech architecture, but really cool stuff. Nothing to do really with imposter syndrome and all that, but he makes really cool infographics and has really nice recommendations for like architecture and system design books, and highly recommended.
No, I think what really changed for me was listening to this podcast called Diary of a CEO. And it has a really good collection of, guests from Chief Business Officer of Google and CEO of Spotify to a really, startup kind of a person who's just starting their business, and the range that you get of the experiences, exposure, them being vulnerable, being more human, and sharing their challenges, it makes you think that it's okay to sometimes fail as long as you keep getting up and keep pushing yourself. So I highly recommend that because it offers a wide range of experiences of people in their career as well as personal lives.
What was the name of the podcast?
Diary of CEO.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, one that I love, and it's going back to fighting your imposter syndrome from within. It's not really about tech, but it's called The School of Life, and it is led by Alain de Botton, and I think he's a brilliant philosopher, and they do have a YouTube channel, and they also have a website, and they have like different games and stuff, and it's basically different tools for life. To just live your life better and take it with a little bit, learn to take it with a grain of salt. I just really appreciate like his view and his philosophy, and then he also shares about a lot of like philosophers through history and stuff like that. If you've heard of Stoicism, there's a lot of that in there. So it's content that I really appreciate, and I think it's very valuable.
I'll also plug Masterclass. I'm doing the Leading with Purpose course right now. There's a lot of cool stuff on that app. So.
All right. Any more questions? Okay. We can do you first and then you.
Yeah, sorry, didn't see that. Really quick, if you were in interview for some in tech world, and if they asked you what were your weaknesses or weakness, what would you say to that in a few words?
Be real about it, but definitely don't leave it at a weakness. I highly recommend that you also highlight what you are doing to overcome that. That goes a large extra mile, I feel, than just ending up with your weakness. It's one thing that you recognize it, but what they're really looking for is that what you're doing to be better.
I would second that.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Thank you.
So
in a job, you must be taking like a lot of tough decisions. How do you get people to agree with that? Like people who've been longer in the game. How do you get people to agree with that without offending them?
Well, of course, there's a bit of strategy at play. So it's important to, be human, be vulnerable, be truthful. I think people appreciate honesty and truthfulness. And really, at the end of the day, people just want to know that you're in their corner, and whatever you're proposing is going to help them achieve their goals. So for me, I found success in just kind of laying out, hey, let's collaborate. Here's like a plan. Let's stick to it. Do you agree? Oh, I like to get consensus as well, like, hey, I appreciate your inputs, let's work together on this, and just help people feel included and let them understand what's the value add of you coming in and kind of disrupting things, what kind of opportunities can you bring to them, and once you convince them of that, it's kind of a win-win, I would say, so.
100%.
Yeah, I absolutely go with that, and just really, that is the top thing that you should think about, but just something to add to that is, I see it in sort of like two ways. There is the storyteller in this, like how to get people to agree with you. There's a storyteller, and then there's also the idea of like, what you said right now was, there are people who like will disagree. So the folks who disagree, I really want to know why. So like, it's important to be a good storyteller, to be honest with you, to be able to make people understand where you're coming from, what are the pros and cons of this. But for example, if the people who disagree have an expertise that I don't have, that is something that would be like important, because like I'm not an expert in everything, I assure you. So like sometimes I've had people disagree with me for very good reasons. And so they're like, oh, this, whatever it is. And then we will come, and that's why I'm saying like, this is just like to piggyback on what she said of like, okay, then we will bring together and come to a consensus based on everyone's expertise. So like, that is what I have found most valuable, like at my level and in my position, is to have everyone at the table, like everyone's there because they deserve to be there and because they bring so much value to the table. So I want to hear them out. Sometimes you'll have people who disagree just because they don't like it. So it's important as a leader to be able to like have the expertise that you need to have for the work that you do, but to develop the eye, and that only comes with years of experience, to develop the eye of sometimes there will just be dissent for no reason, and like that is when that doesn't need to necessarily like play a part in your project decisions, whereas expertise absolutely does. So, and the people you're paying to be there, they're there because they bring value. So that's what I would say, like everything that Jen just said, but do give space to people who are bringing in and really listen. And that's how you can see if, okay, this is a very important reason why this is important for the project, or are they just disagreeing because whatever the reason might be that they just don't.
Yeah, I think for anybody who's new just stepping into their career, a few years into the career, the best thing that you can do to slowly keep building on to the years of experience that you were talking about, show your stakeholders that you have their corner. Be strong allies and show that you care for for their mission. They will naturally come to you. They'll seek your advice because they know you're in their corner. So.
And hire people smarter than you.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, that's how you get so many times people to disagree with you. That's actually a good thing when it's for the reason of, oh, they have actually more expertise than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. If not, you're wasting your money. So you might as well.
Any more questions?
I got a quick one. Other than WTM and GDG, what other communities are you aware of that like are welcoming, supportive, carry this conversation forward? Are you any like meetups or tech communities that you're aware of?
Yeah, so there is a plug here, Flutter Chicago, if you're interested in mobile development. Flutter is a cross-platform tool, SDK from Google that you can use, and we have a meetup the Flutter Chicago meetup. We usually meet quarterly now, and we have a meetup coming up. I think it's this week, very, very soon. If you would like to come join us, we will be meeting very close to Union Station. So that is one that is close to my heart. It's also I'm the co-organizer for that meetup. How about y'all?
I'll just follow you.
Awesome. And then also I wanted to, again, if you know any like high school age girls, there's GirlCon coming on in June. It's about a month, a little bit over a month away because we're still in April. But it's going to be such a cool time and such a great opportunity for young women to, you know, network with each other, get to know each other through the summer. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity if you know anybody, any girls at high school age. And it's going to be at the Google offices, so close-ish to here. Yeah.
And another great group too is called, they used to be called Network of Executive Women, and I used to volunteer for them. Now they've rebranded as Next. They've got, you know, different local chapters. If you're interested in getting into just networking with other professional women, that's another great one.
I would also definitely say if you're a student, checking your university, there's something called GDSC, so that's also another way to get involved. Going on Meetup, like Valeria said, there's a bunch of cool Meetup groups out there. Flutter's one of them. I know there's girl tech groups as well, and groups for the men as well. So definitely just go on Meetups and search some of that stuff up because I know there's a lot. We have a lot here in Chicago. That's all I was gonna add on.
If there's anything too for GDG, we this content here that we put together comes from your feedback. Panelists, thank you so much for the conversation today, but really anything you have, whether it be impactful things, it doesn't have to be a tech talk. I mean, we can go to another generative AI talk, but really what are we doing to make an impact? So anything you folks have, reach out to Amanda, reach out to myself, reach out to Dan. We're happy to put things together.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for organizing this. It's been very honor being here.
Let's get photos, yes.
Selfie time. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Make sure.
Thank you, guys.
Of course. Do it. Yeah, come in. Go ahead.
Let's stand together.
Help yourself to any food, drinks, anything you want. You can't take off on walk, so you have to finish it in the room. So, is the selfie? That's a picture. Here we go. Hey, Amanda, can you change it?
Go back to the panel.
Yeah. It's all over the top. There we go. Sorry. One more. 3, 2, 1. I'll take a few. There you go. Got a few. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Awesome
Thank
job.
you. This was great. Thanks for including us.
Thank you, guys.
Good feeding. This was wonderful.
I loved hearing your stories.
2022, yes.
Do you want to connect
Hi, Fatima. Nice to meet you.
Cheers. Cheers.
I was here grad student at